As part of my business, I do consultations for people building out their smart homes. Most of the time, it's someone just trying to make good decisions when starting out, but every so often, I get someone who needs a little help. I've helped people with dangerous situations before, like children that just leave the home. But in this last consultation, I met a woman who was afraid for her life. Now, I get people to fill out a form to start the process so I can go into our conversation ready, but as I read this one, it was clear that she was being terrorized. People had threatened her. They'd entered her apartment when she left, and they'd even entered when she was in the shower. All of this to scare and intimidate, and the actions they were taking were getting worse over time. And it gets worse because there were a number of reasons she couldn't move or leave the situation, and the police weren't helping at all. There's just no evidence. So we needed to get her some evidence, and more importantly, get her to a place where she felt and was secure. And we needed this to happen quickly. So we jumped on a call the very next day, and I had to come out with recommendations to get her rolling immediately. I'll tell you what I recommended and why. There's some pretty detailed reasons for the way we went, and I think you guys are going to be surprised. Hello Automators, thanks for tuning in again. Now this is a tough story to tell, but I think it's really important to share these situations. And I'm open to you guys telling me I've recommended the wrong thing, because if I can help someone better next time, that's great. But I think most people are going to learn a few things about redundancy, reliability, and what smart can actually do through this story. Now this situation is worse than I led on in the intro. We have some additional problems to deal with. The first problem we have is she's in an apartment building, and the building manager is a complicit jerk. He's allowing people into her suite. Now, since she's in an apartment building and the building manager has to have keys, there's very little we can do. We can't use things like smart locks. It wouldn't help in this case anyways, but we can't install anything outside her door like a doorbell either. With the building manager being part of this, they've been able to do things like turn off the power to her apartment. And they've also been able to enter without causing damage. So there's no evidence. The power is an especially big problem because they've done this to prevent her from having any footage on smart home cameras, and it eliminates a lot of the great solutions we could potentially have. They've also been stealing things like cameras from her, so despite her looking up ways to protect herself and trying to put some of these things in place, they are both terrorizing her and costing her money. The fact that they are stealing eliminates a lot of things like cameras with local SD card storage, and even things like NVR camera systems that store footage on a hard drive. They could be elsewhere in her place, but the fact is, we just don't know if they'll be there when they leave. Now, if someone is turning off the power on you, in a lot of cases that will mean you will lose your home's Wi-Fi and potentially even your home's internet connection. So I need to give her a video solution that makes it hard to steal. It has to survive a power outage and still be recording, and we have to get her Wi-Fi and internet to a point where even if the power goes out, everything's still gonna work. And all that has to be in place, even if they steal the camera. We have to already have the footage that's necessary for her to turn the tide against these. Now, there's actually a fairly easy way for us to deal with the internet and the Wi-Fi problem. We specified a battery backup on the ISP's modem, and they will also be providing a new router with Wi-Fi. Now, since the power is going off and the router doesn't have a battery backup, we've brought our own battery backup, otherwise known as a UPS or uninterruptible power supply. This power supply doesn't have to be huge because she's not going out for days and days. She's just taking short little trips to stores and going about her daily business. So we just need something that's gonna last a few hours, and that actually means we can specify something very small. Plus, what we're gonna plug into this battery backup won't use a lot of power, so we'll actually get days and days of power backup out of just this. That ensures that even when the power goes out, we will still have Wi-Fi and internet connectivity in most cases, or at least it's a very good chance, and it's going to be much more difficult for anyone to enter her suite without those things available. Now I can move on to the cameras because we need to catch these clowns. I want a little bit of redundancy so that we're not relying on the power, the internet, or the camera even still being there when they leave. And I think there's only one camera that works, period. That is the Google Nest outdoor camera. Now this camera has a battery on it and it can last for months if it's just recording events as people come into the space or move around it. Now, one of the things that we're going to do that will make it much harder to steal it, because obviously that's pretty easy, is to purchase an anti-theft mount. The company Wasserstein sells one of these, and while it was originally intended to be used outdoors to deter people from stealing them there, it'll fit our purpose today. Something else that I have specified in this scenario is a power cable for that camera. Then we will be plugging each camera she buys into another UPS and then pointing them at the doors of her apartment. We have one balcony and one front door to cover, and we're going to have the cameras more than 10 feet away from the doors, plus we're going to mount them up pretty high. The power cable I've specified is again an outdoors one, and that makes it very long and allows us to reach the UPS near the floor. This gives us battery backup to a camera with a battery in it, which doesn't make sense until I explain all of what this is doing for us. And right now, you guys tell me if you know where I'm headed. See, a lot of smart home cameras today will miss the start of an event. They'll start recording a few seconds after movement starts as they determine whether or not someone is actually in the view. If I rely on Google's camera to record the event, I could miss the first few seconds where they are getting into her apartment. Since they could eventually get to the camera and still steal it, we need those first few seconds. So what I actually wanted to do was to get the camera to record 24/7. I want each of the cameras to send video to Google's cloud 24 hours a day and 7 days a week. I don't want them to stop recording, and I want there to be 10 days worth of recording sitting on Google servers. Now that means we're gonna get what is called Nest Aware Plus. It's a subscription service that Google offers in order to get exactly those capabilities. But today, even if you have Nest Aware Plus, but you don't have power going into this camera, it won't record 24/7. So with this setup, anyone entering into her apartment could have tried to turn off the power, but we have battery backups. And they could have tried to get the internet to turn off and the Wi-Fi to turn off, but our battery backups will keep that online. These cameras will be recording 24/7, and so the first few moments of these jerkwads entering into the suite will be captured, and the camera will already be sending footage to Google servers. Even if they manage to steal the camera from the anti-theft mount, the footage will already be off-site and tied to a new Google account that only our friend has access to. But let's say that they do manage to get the internet offline. The really neat thing about these cameras from Google is that during an internet outage, they will store the footage physically on this camera. They can store up to an hour's worth, and then when the internet comes back, they'll start their upload. This makes it all incredibly difficult for someone to get into her suite and get out without being on some sort of footage that ends up on Google's server. So I feel pretty good we're gonna catch these losers in the act. Now our camera setup, yeah, it's nice, okay, but it doesn't solve the security issue or the feeling of security. From a mental point of view, in order for our friend to feel secure, we need to provide a feeling that she'll be notified whenever an event is taking place. That's important because it also means she will know when an event is not taking place. This is an incredibly stressful situation for anyone, and stress is linked to so many health problems. So let's get to building our security system. Of course, nothing is easy. We have some more problems to deal with, and I want to add in some redundancy to increase the reliability of the whole system. Now, first off, all wireless signals can be blocked or jammed. It would be reasonable to expect someone to use a Wi-Fi jammer to try and stop the camera. So we need to use different frequencies in our security system because in general, a jamming device has to broadcast a signal at the frequency of the wireless signal it intends to disrupt. We also have a problem because most traditional security systems consist of 3 parts and we'll only be able to use 2 of them. See, a security system has perimeter monitoring, area monitoring, and spot monitoring or point monitoring. We unfortunately can't do a lot of perimeter monitoring because of the restrictions put in place by the building, but we'll do the other 2 kinds. Also, we don't have a very technical individual. She's done really well. And if you're watching this, I want you to know that I've been nothing but impressed with everything you've done to date. To deal with as much of a security system as is possible, we're gonna add a smart home hub with a DIY security system. We're gonna add in sensors that detect people opening doors, moving in the space, and we're gonna add in one little surprise that will alert everyone in the building that something is going wrong. Now for the smart home hub, I recommended the AOTech smart home hub that gets us access to Samsung SmartThings. This is an easy to install and easy to implement system that meets the technical capabilities of just about anyone. The AOTech Smart Home Hub contains a lot of different radios, which means we can use a ton of different sensors and a ton of different products to set up the system. Most importantly in this case is the fact that the hub contains a Z-Wave radio. If you didn't know already, most security systems installed by companies like ADT, they charge you a monthly fee to monitor them, but they use Z-Wave in order to communicate with all the devices they put around your home. So this is very similar, it's just that she'll be doing the monitoring. More on that in a bit. But this smart home hub used to require the internet for all of its functions. But today, most of the functions can be taken without the internet available. It also has an Ethernet port on it, so it can be plugged into her new router and not have to rely on her Wi-Fi in her home. I can also plug it into the UPS. The other interesting thing about this is that we get the cameras from Google Nest to work inside of Samsung SmartThings. So they become additional sensors, and that becomes an additional way that we can look at the cameras and obtain footage. But then we need to make sure that whenever someone opens a door, we know about it. In general, I'm not too worried about these, whatever we're gonna call them this time, bringing a wireless jammer. So I recommended that we use AOTech's multi-purpose sensor. This is a Zigbee sensor, and that means that it operates at that same frequency as Wi-Fi, but this is an extremely reliable product and it's gonna work 99.9 times out of 100. So when the door opens or closes, this hub will know. But I want to get that Z-Wave frequency being used. So I've also specified an additional redundant sensor on the front door that uses that technology. The good news is AOTech makes one of those and we can pick one of them up for about the same price as this multi-sensor. This way, our friend will actually have 2 door sensors on that door, so we have a lot of redundancy now. The other thing we'll be doing is adding in motion sensors in the main spaces in the home. And again, I'm just gonna use the AOTech motion sensors, which are bulletproof, reliable Zigbee motion sensors that connect to this hub, but I can do the same thing with Z-Wave. I haven't specified that at this point because we have a lot of redundancy already, but they'll know when there's movement in the space and they'll send that to the hub. Now, one of the nice things about this system is that you can set it up to use your geolocation to turn on and off the security system. That means when you're opening the front door yourself and you're in the building, then you're not going to be notified that someone's breaking into your home. But geolocation is not perfect in terms of reliability. So we need something that's going to be bulletproof. Now the SmartThings app is actually really easy to use in order to arm and disarm this security system, but our friend wanted a little easier way. So again, I specified the AOTech Smart Button, which can be used through a single press to arm the system and through a double press to disarm the system. So as she comes and goes, she can manage that system herself. It's also really easy to put a delay on the system arming and to put a delay on the next part, which is a doozy. Now, the last thing that we're going to add physically to this system is a Z-Wave siren. We're actually still in the hunt for this, and I wanted to use the Zoo's Multi-Siren S2 because it's battery powered and because it is remarkably loud. Unfortunately, Zoo's has discontinued this, so it's a little hard to find, but the good news is I got one, so worst comes to worst, this is going to our friend. Now, if you have a good Z-Wave siren that you're using today in your home with SmartThings, I would love to hear about that, and I would also love to hear whether or not you have an Edge driver on that. From here, it's very easy for us to set up her smart home security system. The SmartThings team has made this really easy as a process, and you just follow a couple of prompts in that application in order to get that set up. You'll make choices like which siren you would like to go off, and if you would like any cameras to start recording. So the thing I really like about this whole system is that we'll be recording offsite 24/7. If anyone enters into the apartment and she isn't there or has armed the system, the siren is going off. So not only should we have immediate footage, but they should be scared away. And all of this is on enough battery power. So even if they turn off the power, we should be able to get the evidence she needs, and we should be able to give our friend the peace of mind for living in this place. I'm hoping we can turn the tides really quickly. Now, if you're dealing with something like this, obviously there's a lot of official resources, but I thought this was a really great example to inform you about smart home gear and how it can be used and be a little more capable than you might think when combined in the right way. And I want you guys to know I got full permission to tell this story, but I haven't included some details in order to protect the identity of our friend. For those of you who might be dealing with something like this, I didn't charge this person, and I normally do in my consultations, but this isn't something that you should feel like money is a barrier. Obviously, the equipment is going to be a little bit of a barrier, and there is an ongoing cost with this one, with the Nest Aware Plus, but I think we're going to get this person out of this situation, and that's worth it. And also keep in mind, she can sell all this gear immediately after she's done. Otherwise, automators, I figure you need something lighter to watch. And if you're wondering how I knew that these kinds of devices would fit this situation so well, then you should watch a few of our massive smart home unboxing videos where I go through all the best in the tech industry. There's a playlist up on screen right now that you can check out. Otherwise, thanks for watching today. And of course, don't hate, automate.